Guys, I had this really cool idea where I was going to dress up as Cloud for this video. This cost me 70 quid. I hate my life. I hate RPGs.
I hope you die in a fire!
Alright, that might be a little bit too strong. I wouldn't say I hate RPGs, but generally speaking, I'm not really a fan. When I come home from work, I'm usually kind of tired. I've got to go take the dog for a walk, I've got chores to do, and just things that I have to get done. And maybe I've got like an hour before bed where I can sit down, chill out, and play a game. And I'm not fussy about the genre. Hack and slash, beat 'em ups, FPS shooters, platformers, I'll play anything except RPGs. And the reason for that is when I've got such little time, the last thing I want to do is invest in a game that's going to take me 200 hours to complete and I'm not going to be able to finish it until next year. So yeah, I'm not really a big fan of RPGs. There are a few exceptions, of course, namely Persona 4 and Persona 5. I adore those games, but I like those games in spite of the fact that they're RPGs rather than because they're RPGs. I love the social elements of the Persona games, I love the story, I love the music and the vibe, but when it comes to going through dungeons and taking part in turn-based combat and leveling up, you know, all the RPG elements to Persona 4 and 5, that's where I'm not really as much of a fan. With all that said, there are still a few RPGs I've always been quite curious about and I've always wanted to check out. Very recently, we had Expedition 33, which looks amazing. I will admit, I actually do really want to play that game. We had Metaphor ReFantazio, that looks fantastic. But when it comes to the retro side of RPGs, there's one game in particular that I hear so much praise for that I can't help but be curious. There's a million RPGs that everybody sings the praises of, but there's one in particular that I've always wanted to check out. And of course, the one I'm talking about is Final Fantasy VII. So I decided very recently that I was going to give it a crack. I was going to give it a fair shot, in spite of the fact that I'm not really a big fan of RPGs. So I thought today I would sit on this stool in front of this green screen and talk about this game because I've had quite the experience with it. I'm going to try not to talk too much today. I'm not going to go through every single aspect of Final Fantasy VII because we will be here for years. My last few videos have been way too long, so I don't want that to be the case today. But with that said, I do have quite a few things to talk about, so who knows, I might be here a while. So yeah, if you're coming to this video expecting me to go through the entirety of Final Fantasy VII, I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's not going to be one of those videos. I'm just going to be talking about my general experience, things that happened, things I liked and didn't like, and just talk about how I felt about Final Fantasy VII. So with all that said then, guys, let's jump straight into it. So I think the first thing I do want to talk about is the music to Final Fantasy VII, because oh my goodness me, this soundtrack is actually just incredible. Before you even get into the game, there's a little bit of like credits and like an intro, and this just whimsical song plays, and I knew from that second onwards that I was probably gonna like the soundtrack to this game. And shortly after that, you start getting into battles, and you start to feel a completely different vibe to the soundtrack. You almost feel amped up and ready to get into things. The soundtrack to Final Fantasy VII is ridiculously varied. There's melancholic songs, there's happy songs, there's weird and wonderful songs. It literally has a little bit of everything. But there's two songs to this game that I want to highlight in particular because they get stuck in my head on a regular basis. The Kate Sith theme is the best. It's the best song ever.
It's such a great song. That is a straight up certified boner jam.
But I think my favourite song of all of the songs in Final Fantasy VII is when you enter Wall Market for the first time. It's a banger. Like, it's just straight up an absolute banger. I've added it to my playlist. It's that good. It's got like a hint of reggae to it, and it's just got such an amazing vibe. And I just loved being in Wall Market in general. It's one of my favourite parts of the game, actually, especially early on. Also, very quickly, I do want to shout out the Chocobo Racing theme. That is insanely catchy. I had that stuck in my head for literally a whole weekend because I was doing so much Chocobo Racing at one point, and yeah, I couldn't get it out of my head. But we'll get more into the Chocobo Racing a little bit later, guys, because I do have a very particular story about that. So yeah, moving on from the soundtrack, guys, I want to talk about the first impressions with Final Fantasy VII because I went into this game completely blind. I've never seen gameplay for it, I've never seen videos on it, I just heard all the good things and wanted to try it, so I didn't know what to expect. And I have to say, my first experience was was a bit weird because it just wasn't at all what I had in mind. The game starts off and you see this like train, and I was blown away by the graphics because this is a PS1 game and I played it on original hardware, and I honestly couldn't believe how good it looks. Like, I was really surprised. But then all of a sudden, like coming from the chain, you see little sort of chibi characters jump off the train, and I was like, I was confused. I was like, what the hell?
What in the Oreo cookie is this?
It soon grew on me though. I really like the way the characters are designed in Final Fantasy VII. They've got just a cool look to them, but it just wasn't at all what I was expecting. It really did surprise me. And very quickly after that, we actually enter our first battle, and I get to experience the turn-based combat of Final Fantasy VII for the first time. And when it comes to the turn-based combat, I'd say I had really low expectations. I did not expect to enjoy it at all, really. I wanted to play Final Fantasy VII for the story. That's what I was playing it for. But I was blown away by how much I enjoyed the combat. Turn-based combat is not something I typically enjoy. I mentioned before that I like Persona 4 and 5, but the turn-based combat in both of those games, it's fine. I don't hate it, but it's one of the least favorite things about the game for me. And I've played a few other RPGs like Sea of Stars that have turn-based combat, and again, I don't hate it, but it's not like my favorite thing. But I can safely say that Final Fantasy VII has my favorite turn-based combat in any RPG that I've played so far, which isn't many, I must admit, but I absolutely adored it. I actually looked forward to the battles. That's how much I had fun with it. And this is for a whole host of different reasons, and I think the first reason that I really like the combat in FF7 is how fast-paced it all is. In other turn-based games that I've played, it's kind of back and forth, like they'll have a turn and hit you, you'll have a turn and hit them, and it's quite slow, especially the way I play, because again, I'm not really used to these turn-based games, so I typically play quite slowly. But with FF7, you don't have a choice but to play quickly. You have to think on the fly. And the reason for that is that FF7 has a timer mechanic where you can get attacked if you take too long. If you're taking ages with your turns, the enemy doesn't wait around. He'll just start attacking you. So you don't have time to sit there and think, oh, shall I use this thing or shall I use magic here? No, you just have to go. And the combat works especially well when you're in those tough boss situations where you've got to think about whether you want to heal or take a risk and attack, or sometimes you've got a limit break and you want to use that, but then you're like, oh crap, I should have healed. Again, you have to think so quickly in this game, and you have to make the right decision or you will get punished. And the second reason I love the combat to Final Fantasy VII is materia.
If you held it up to the light, it was all twinkly.
Now, materia is basically just spells. It's different magic you can use, which is nothing new for any RPG. Pretty much all RPGs allow you to use some form of magic. But the reason I love materia is it's just so varied. When you start the game, it's pretty simple. You've got ice attacks and fire attacks and healing, you know, just the typical stuff. But as you get towards the end of the game, there's a ridiculous amount. On top of that as well, you can actually link two different materias together. So for example, you can have an all materia and link it to a healing materia so you can heal all of your teammates. Now, I'll be totally honest with you fellas, I didn't really experiment too much with materia up until the end of the game because I was kind of breezing my way through it. I didn't find Final Fantasy VII hard at all.
Ooh. You're hard.
But then I got towards the end of the game where I was like, okay, this is getting tough now. So I actually had to really think about materia a bit more. But yeah, I just love the variety of the materia, especially when you find the really good ones. There was some really cool materia towards the end. And I think the final thing I really like about the combat in Final Fantasy VII is the limit breaks. Now, limit breaks are essentially special attacks, which again is nothing new. This is in every single RPG. But the difference with limit breaks and other special attacks is that special attacks usually are acquired when you deal damage, whereas with limit breaks, you actually acquire them when you take damage. So essentially, if you're coming up against a tough opponent, you're more likely to get more special attacks. And finding that perfect time to actually use the limit breaks is so awesome, because there are times where, again, you might want to heal or you might want to do this, that, and the other, but you're like, I want to use my limit break, and it's so tempting to just jump in and use it. But it's not always the best thing to do, and it's just about finding the right time to do things in Final Fantasy VII that made the combat so enjoyable. Hello, Fred. Hello, puppy. Hello, booby. You okay? You okay? Hello. What's you doing? You trying to be in the video? Do you want to talk about Final Fantasy VII? You do, don't you? You love Final Fantasy VII, don't you? Alright guys, I've been glazing this game a little bit too much, alright? I need to slow down on the meat riding.
What? No, you're right. I was dick riding. That's what I'm saying, bro. You gotta calm down with that shit.
I'm supposed to be the RPG hater here, and I'm not really hating on this RPG enough, so let's talk about something that I didn't like about Final Fantasy VII. So like I said before, guys, I played this game the classic way. I did not emulate this one. I played it on the PS1, and I used a strategy guide. I wanted to play it as authentically as possible, as if it was the 90s. And I have to say, I loved it, especially with the strategy guide. This strategy guide is absolutely incredible. I thoroughly recommend it. However, boys, there are some downsides to playing a PS1 game as opposed to playing something a little bit more modern. In modern games, there's a little cheeky feature called auto-saving, which makes things a lot easier. You never have to think about saving the game because the game will do it for you. But unfortunately, during the PS1 era, that really wasn't a thing. You had to save the game manually, almost always. And in fairness to Final Fantasy VII, there's plenty of save points. There's no shortage of them. It's quite nice, actually, with the amount that they give you. There are plenty of opportunities to save the game, but I'm stupid. And there are many opportunities where I got a little bit carried away with the story and the combat, and I was getting sucked into the world so much that I just forgot to save the bloody game. In FF7, there's a little save point prompt that you can walk up to, and you can save the game there and then. And when those would pop up, I would almost always save it because it was there, you know. I would just see it and think, yeah, let's save it. But the game will also allow you to save it in the green hub world, but I would constantly forget. There was one point in the game where I'd played for a good few hours and I hadn't saved the game because I didn't see the prompt. I had the chances to save it in the green hub world, but I just kept forgetting. I'd gone through quite a few combat encounters, I'd gone through quite a lot of story, and I'd not saved for a while, and then my game got stuck on a glitch, didn't it? And there was no way of getting out of it. I was stuck on this stupid pole thing and Cloud was just running around and I couldn't get off the bloody thing, and I had no choice but to reset my console and go back, you know, hours of progress.
I'm good, bro. You okay? I'm good, bro. You geeking, bro. I'm good. Bro. I'm good, bro.
I was very annoyed at myself for not saving it then, and after that, I kind of learnt my lesson. I would save it a lot more after that. Right then, boys, let's get back to the glazing. Let's talk good stuff about Final Fantasy VII. I think one of my favourite things about this game is just the sheer amount of variety when it comes to locations. I can't think of a game other than maybe Mario 64 that just allows you so much variety in the different places you go. You've got dark, gloomy, atmospheric places like Midgard, and then you've got snowy mountains where you can snowboard. And there's a bloody carnival in this game, and within the carnival, there's several different types of locations. I mean, there's a haunted house in it.
Damn, that's crazy.
You can go to the flipping beach in this game and chill. Like, it's incredible. If you can think of somewhere to go, the chances are this game will allow you. Like, there's just such a ridiculous variety in the different locations you get to visit. But I think out of all the different locations I went in this game, I think my favourite would have to be Wall Market. And we did speak about it briefly earlier because the soundtrack is mwah, it is absolutely top tier. But just the general vibe of that place is so chill. And I loved that little section of the game. I know that I said that I wasn't going deep into the story with FF7, and I'm not going to, but I absolutely love the bit where Aeris and Cloud have to find Tifa in that weird dungeon place. We're like going clothes shopping because we've got to dress up Cloud into a female disguise so that he can go into Corneo's dungeon. I just love that whole section, but being in Wall Market, again, it was such a vibe. So I suppose the most natural place we can take this video now is the characters. I mentioned Aeris, Cloud, and Tifa, and yeah, I'm not going to go into every single character in this game because again, we'll be here all day, but I'll just go through sort of like my main favourite ones. So of course, the main character in FF7 is Cloud, and I honestly didn't expect to like Cloud as much as I ended up liking him. In my head, for some weird reason, I always kind of figured that Cloud would be in the background a little bit whilst the side characters steal the show, but that couldn't be further from the truth. When you first meet Cloud, he doesn't really care about anyone or anything, except for Tifa, I suppose, but other than that, he doesn't like anyone, he doesn't care about anything, he's very grumpy. That's the best way I would describe him. But by the end of the game, he is a completely different character, and you see that progression through the game, and it's incredible. You get to see him become closer friends with Barrett, you get to see his relationship between Tifa and Aeris develop, seeing the rivalry between him and Sephiroth, and we'll talk more about Sephiroth in a minute, was absolutely amazing. But I think my favourite thing about Cloud was learning about his backstory, because you think you know Cloud in the first sort of half of the game, but once you get towards the end, you start to learn things about his memories, about what's real and what wasn't, and then you're like, wow, I did not know this character one bit. So by the the end of the game, Cloud had actually become one of my favourite characters in gaming. I loved his development. Next up, I want to talk about Sephiroth, and I knew Sephiroth was going to be an incredible villain because I knew about Sephiroth before I'd even played the game. He's that iconic, but I had no idea just how amazing of a villain he is. Like, he is the villain of all villains.
I am the best in the world at what I do, and I know we can all have a laugh, but let's be honest, like, no one can touch me, right?
When we first learn about Sephiroth, it's actually through one of Cloud's flashbacks, and yeah, you and him are buddy-buddy, and you're teaming up together, and you're playing as Cloud. I knew from the second that I played through this flashback just how incredible of a villain he was, because as you're playing as Cloud and you're attacking the enemies, you're doing like 1 damage, like you're having no effect. Meanwhile, Sephiroth is just wiping the floor with everybody through the battles, and for me that just sort of highlighted just how powerful of a villain Sephiroth was, because I all thought Cloud was pretty powerful, but compared to Sephiroth at that point, he obviously wasn't. And I thought that was an amazing way of showing the power difference between Cloud and Sephiroth. It's really clever, because most games will just tell you, you know, oh, Sephiroth is really powerful, but the game showed you it. And as for the rest of the characters in FF7, again, I'm not going to go into all of them, but I will very quickly mention that Tifa was an amazing character. I really loved her development, especially towards the end of the game. I loved Aeris, I loved how carefree she was, I loved how kind she was. I also loved the way that we meet Aeris. You fall into her flower bed from a roof, and she's just part of the team from that point onwards. And of course, you can't make an FF7 video without talking about Barrett. What a badass. I loved his character. Learning about Barrett's backstory and why he hates Shinra so much was such an amazing arc. I really enjoyed that section of the game. And once again, seeing his character develop was really satisfying. I loved just all of the characters in FF7. I thought they were incredible. So yeah, we've talked briefly about the characters, boys, and again, I don't want to go too deep into the story, but there is one thing that I feel like we need to talk about, because, I mean, it's one of the most impactful moments in all of gaming. For those that haven't played FF7, I would suggest skipping to this time, because you're gonna get a major spoiler here, and I think those that have played FF7 know exactly what I'm about to talk about. So yeah, this is a super big spoiler, so if you haven't played the game, yeah, just skip this bit. So right at the end of Disc 1, one of the best characters in the game dies, and of course, I'm talking about Aeris. No! And it was heartbreaking. I couldn't believe it. When it happened, I thought, nah, we're gonna find a way to revive her. She's not gonna be permanently dead. But no, she actually is dead, like, period. Sephiroth falls from the sky and stabs her through the chest. And again, I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, no, it can't be true. That can't be happening. At this point in the story, I already hated Sephiroth. He didn't need to give me extra reasons to hate him. Like, he was already at the top of my hate list. And after that, I was just like, I almost had to hold my hands up and say, this guy's a villain, alright? He is the villain of all villains. He's just killed one of my favourite characters. And the worst part is that I was leveling up Aeris like a crazy amount. Like, I was getting her up to a crazy level, and then she's just gone from the game. So all of that felt like a waste of time. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say other than rest in peace, Aeris. I will miss your limit break. I loved the healing wind. That was overpowered as hell. So yeah, after Aeris dies, I won't lie to you guys, it feels real empty. You know, the whole squad just doesn't feel right. And it happens around about the halfway stage of the game, and that void never really ever gets filled. You always do feel like she should be with you and she isn't. But at the same time, it does also just give you that extra impetus to want to beat Sephiroth. Like, I was already driven enough to beat him, but that was like all the motivation I needed. And the second half of the game, that's what it's all about. It's about defeating Sephiroth. So I want to commend the makers of FF7 for making such a bold choice, because it could have backfired so easily. Like, I talked a little bit about Sea of Stars earlier when I was talking about the turn-based combat, and there's a certain character that dies in that game, and the game just feels completely off after that. I didn't actually enjoy the game after that certain character died. So the fact that I still really enjoyed FF7, if not enjoyed it more so after Aeris' death, is really commendable. Alright guys, so we've talked about some things I've liked. I've even mentioned some things I didn't like about FF7, but now I want to talk about something that I shouldn't have liked, but did like. Like, it doesn't even make sense why I enjoyed this aspect of the game, because it should have been easily the worst part of FF7, but I actually loved leveling in this game.
What? And by the way, me?
That is the reason that I usually steer clear from most RPGs, because I just frankly don't want to sit there fighting lower level enemies and just grinding away to get more XP. It's boring as hell, but for whatever reason, I loved doing it in FF7. It makes absolutely no sense, but I would get home tired from work, and, you know, after doing everything and finally getting some time to sit down and play, I just wanted to sit and level. I would literally just walk around the little hub world world until encounters would pop up, and I would just do that over and over and over again until I would level up. And yeah, I really enjoyed doing that for some weird reason, and I can't even tell you guys why that's the case, but I did. I suppose what I liked about it so much is the fact that I just didn't have to concentrate on the game. I could just sit with like YouTube on or music, and it would give me that time to really unwind after work, and I could just de-stress myself, and then, you know, you'd be ready for the next day. So yeah, for some weird reason, one of my favourite things about FF7 was the leveling, which makes no sense, but I loved doing it. Alright boys, so I've talked about pretty much everything I want to talk about with FF7, but I do want to end this video talking about one of my favourite nights of gaming I've had in a long time, and of course, it involves FF7. I can't remember the last time I had a night like this, just playing one game and enjoying it as much as I did. So yeah, this all happened in like the final area of the game. I was nearly finished with it, and we were about to go and take on Sephiroth, but of course, before you get to that, you have to take on a bunch of enemies, and it's a fairly long area, and it was tough. There were some enemies in there that were pretty difficult, and I lost a few party members and had to use quite a few Phoenix Downs, but all in all, we survived through these different enemies, and all was good. And just before you take on Sephiroth, you have to take on Genova, and I thought it was a pretty easy fight, to be honest with you. I didn't struggle whatsoever. So the next step was to take on Sephiroth, and I was going in pretty damn cocky, to be honest with you, because I was really over-leveled, and I thought it was going to be a breeze, but I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. He wasn't really beating me up or anything, but I couldn't beat him, and it just kind of turned into this weird back and forth where it just went on forever. And the reason this was happening is that he uses this particular spell that I couldn't work around, and it's called Bizarro Energy. This little asshole would literally heal himself by 6,700, and he would do it regularly.
I'm on my knees, brother! I'm on my bloody knees! Where's that come from?
And I didn't have a counter for this. I didn't have a physical attack that could do more than that, and I didn't have any materia that could do that kind of damage. Like I said before, I was finding this game pretty easy, so I didn't really see an incentive to go out and find the best materia in the game because I just wasn't struggling. But after about 20 minutes of just me going back and forth with Sephiroth and not getting anywhere because he would literally just heal himself, I just had to reset the console and rethink my entire strategy. So yeah, I know what you guys are pretty thinking, like, Michelle, you said this was your favourite gaming night. Like, this doesn't sound like a good gaming night, but the gaming night was actually the following day. I turned my PlayStation off at this point, and I was, you know, getting ready for bed and everything, and I was about to go to sleep, and I was sat in my bed thinking, how am I gonna beat Sephiroth? So I woke up the next morning. It was a Saturday. I had no plans. I just wanted to beat FF7. That was my only objective for the day. So I started Googling, like, how to beat Sephiroth, and the one thing that would constantly come up was a particular materia that I needed. And this particular materia was called the Knights of the Round, and it's a particular summon that does ridiculous damage. Like, it's actually crazy how overpowered it is. But the trouble is, in order to get it, you need a golden chocobo, which is not easy to achieve. So I googled like how to get a golden chocobo. I found a YouTube video, and I followed this video, you know, from step 1 all the way up to step 100 until I had my golden chocobo. And this process took a very long time. It took most of the day, actually, because the first thing you have to do is find a couple of chocobo, and then you got to breed those chocobos into, I think, like a blue chocobo, and then you have to breed a blue one, and there's a long process of breeding, and it's kind of RNG based, so if you don't get the right chocobo that you want and the right gender, you have to reset your console. So I had to do that a few times until I got the chocobos I wanted. And then once you've got those chocobos, you then have to go into chocobo racing. You have to win a whole ton of different races with these different chocobo, and you kind of just do that back and forth between breeding and racing, and it took ages, but I loved it. So yeah, once I had this golden chocobo, I googled like where the hell this Knights of the Round material was, and I managed to find it. So I knew once I got this materia that I was ready now for Sephiroth, but that whole process literally took all day. So I thought, we'll save that for tomorrow, we'll save that for Sunday. But yeah, there was just something so special about that Saturday and me playing Final Fantasy VII literally all day. We started off with our spirits low because I wasn't sure how we were going to beat Sephiroth, and I honestly thought that maybe there was a chance we'd never be able to beat him. But after doing some research and finding out what we were going to need and knowing that we could do it as long as we got that golden chocobo and just having that constant objective throughout the day, I loved it. It was so much fun. I loved that gaming night. So anyway, we wake up the next day, boys, and I start taking on Sephiroth, and the first phase was an absolute cakewalk with Knights around. I knew it was overpowered because everyone kept saying it was overpowered. It's ridiculous. It keeps going. It goes on for ages. And after that, we get into the second phase with Sephiroth, and I was a little bit, you know, nervous because I thought, have we got enough here? Am I going to be able to take him on? But we start off with the Knights of the Round Materia, and I attack him with that summon, and I get off to a really good start, obviously. And after that, I'm just slowly chipping away. I'm making sure my health is good. I'm making sure that I'm not messing up, and I'm just slowly chipping his health away, and I'm feeling pretty confident. But then he hits you with this attack, and it's probably my favorite attack in all of video games. Like, I cannot believe this is a thing in this game. It's unbelievable. This attack is known as the Supernova, and it starts off with maths equations. And I thought, oh my god, what is about to happen here? Like, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
I don't get nervous, but I'm starting to get a bit shaky, you know? I mean, I'm a little bit weird.
Then the attack sort of starts traveling through space, and it actually blows up Pluto. And I thought, well, all right, it's Pluto, you know, that's not even a real planet. That's a microplanet. It's not a big deal. It's only Pluto. And then it goes through another planet, and another planet, and another planet, and it kept destroying planets. And I was like, what is going to happen? We are people. If this thing can blow up planets, it's going to turn Cloud into freaking microdust, all right? Like, what is going on here? This attack went on for like a minute straight. Like, it takes a minute for Sephiroth to hit you with this attack, and I was just blown away by how incredible this game was. But at the same time, I was pooing my pants because I thought I'm dead. Like, I just thought there's no way I'm surviving this. So anyway, the attack hits, and I was panicking because we were on ridiculously low health. So it's my go now, and I am like rushing to the item list, and I'm like, where the hell's the Mega Elixir? And I'm scrolling through tons of useless crap trying to find it, and I'm worried because if I take too long, Sephiroth is going to wipe his ass with me. But we managed to find the Mega Elixir. I use it, and we're safe. And I thought, oh, thank goodness for that. And I was just hoping he wasn't going to hit me with that attack again.
That was intense. Really intense. Well, not really intense, but pretty intense.
Thankfully, shortly after that, I do manage to beat him, and I felt euphoric. I thought I've actually beaten Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1. I couldn't believe it. And whilst I was pretty happy about it, I also felt a little sadness in me because I just started to reflect on the adventure that I'd had. And, you know, I'd been playing this game for about a month and a half, and I was really, really enjoying my time with it. I love the story, I love the characters, and I really love the gameplay as well. And I'd realised that, you know, I started this game off pretty skeptical. I didn't think I was going to like so many aspects of it, and I just fell in love with it. I absolutely adored Final Fantasy VII. I started this game and this adventure as an RPG hater, and I'd finished the game, maybe not as an RPG lover, but I certainly appreciate RPGs so much more now. And it's opened up a whole new genre to me because there's so many RPGs that I now want to try out, and I'm excited to play. I'd mentioned before that I really want to play Metaphor ReFantazio, and I really want to play Clair Obscur Expedition 33, but there's so many more now on the PlayStation 1 especially that I want to check out. There's one in particular called Vagrant Story, which looks really cool, and I want to try it. I want to try out Chrono Trigger. I want to try out other Final Fantasy games. There's so many RPGs that I want to try now, and it's all thanks to Final Fantasy VII. So I guess I'll just conclude this video by asking you guys in the comments if there's any RPGs you love, let us know. I want to hear every single one of them because I want to really dive deep into this genre now. But anyway, I think that's about all of my thoughts on Final Fantasy VII. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely incredible, and if you haven't played it before, you definitely should. But that's going to do it then, boys. If you did enjoy this video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one, alright? Peace.